Finish him. I'm not even gonna lie, the Mortal Kombat 2 movie actually surprised me, and after seeing the first movie again, this movie was a big step in the right direction. I mean, it sort of squashes the first movie out of existence because this movie was actually that good. If you want to see my full review, and this is going to be spoiler free, then keep watching this video. But I'm Mr. Frosty Flames, you can call me Mike. We do anything gaming news, reviews, playthroughs, etc. and analysis, and now we're doing our first movie review. So if you like that style of content, be sure to hit that sub button and join the Frosty Flames Legion. Anyways, let's get on to the review. To start off, if you love Mortal Kombat like I do, if you're a fan of the games, then you should definitely see this movie. In my opinion, this might be the best Mortal Kombat film to ever reach cinemas. It's way better than the classic Mortal Kombat movies and the Mortal Kombat movie that just came out before this, the Cole Young movie, which obviously a lot of people didn't really like. There was a lot of hype surrounding the movie pre-launch, I seen a lot of advertisements, but there was a lot of skepticism. And an example would be how Johnny Cage is being played by Karl Urban, and he's an older guy. Karl Urban doesn't look like the youngest person, and a lot of times Johnny Cage is portrayed as being a younger guy, and that's probably the most popular version of Johnny, where he's young and he doesn't know what he's doing. But this one is a more grounded, more realistic, more depressed and older Johnny. He still has his Johnny charm and his jokes in the movie, but it is a bit of an older Johnny. So if you're looking for that younger Johnny, you might be a little sort of disappointed. Don't sweat it, because Karl Urban does an amazing job, as with all the other actors and actresses in the movie. Another one to point out is Kitana. Kitana, the older Kitana, Adeline Rudolph or something, I believe, plays a really good Kitana. I can't applaud it enough. And this is borderline a Johnny Cage Kitana protagonist movie, and I love that. I love that they're taking a step away from Cole Young and actually focusing on Mortal Kombat characters that we actually do deserve to see, because a lot of times Johnny and Kitana, they're glorified side characters. I mean, Kitana more is push the spotlight sometimes, but not on a film. You would think that on a film you'd see someone like Liu Kang, Raiden, Scorpion, or Sub-Zero take the spotlight, but this one, no, we're seeing a Johnny Cage and Kitana dual protagonist film, which is really good, and I like, because it pushes these side characters to the spotlight, and it's done well. They have arcs that are very good, and it's easy to follow their story, and the most important thing is their plots are true to the original games. More so Kitana than Johnny Cage, but it doesn't discredit anything that Johnny Cage goes through. It's still amazing. Now, if you know Kitana's backstory, her typical bio where Shao Kahn kills Jared, her father, and takes Kitana in as her adoptive daughter, and then Kitana later betrays Shao Kahn, that's the story they're trying to go for, because it seems like they're trying to go more true to the games rather than just making up their own thing. But like I said, it really works because it's from the games. It's what we know and love. And I say not really Johnny, because then again, Johnny is older and he's going through stuff in the movie, and it's sort of major, sort of not, but he quickly gets over it, and then we have a typical sort of Marvel-esque like movie, because that's what it reminded me of. If you like superhero movies and sort of like that hero's journey a little bit, then you will like Mortal Kombat. But if you don't like anything tropey, if you wanted something original, something that is the I keep saying the developers, because I'm so used to Mortal Kombat being a game, but the producers of the movie, if you want something that's new and original, something that they made up, then you're gonna get a little bit of that, but it's more towards the game. Now, to focus on the plot without spoiling much, it is very true to the game. Like I said, it has that typical tournament style that Mortal Kombat is known for, that thing where Outworld won 9 tournaments and they need to win one more, and if Earthrealm loses that tournament, then Earthrealm will be conquered by Shao Kahn and his forces of Outworld. That's what the whole movie is going to be basically revolving around, but there are some subplots, and one major subplot that is I didn't even know it was going to be in the movie, but you should see it yourself to watch it. But overall, I enjoyed it. And I also feel like for non-Mortal Kombat lore enthusiasts, people that don't know much about Mortal Kombat, they just like the fatalities or something, or they're just going into it blind. It does a good job of explaining the lore. However, it does feel a little bit rushed in the beginning. It's like everything just happens so fast. Johnny Cage doesn't know what's happening, then all of a sudden he's in the tournament with experience and etc., etc., and then Raiden is trying to recruit him, and all these different things just happen really fast. Towards the middle and the end, I feel like the pacing is alright, it's pretty good. But it is an hour and 56 minutes after all, so they kind of have to cram everything in. But I would really have loved if they added, an extra 20 minutes of runtime, maybe go up until like 2 hours and 15 minutes max, just so we could fully explore this, because I feel like they don't really try to bounce off of that first movie, and they're just trying to tell like a story that you could just jump right in and enjoy, which I like, because it's really just throw away that first movie, because I really didn't like it. It does carry some stuff over it shows some scenes, but it really goes into it with like an open mind, for the new viewer, so you really don't need to watch that first movie. However, it does really rush past, especially when it explains like the tournament rules. Obviously I understood it because I seen the games, I played all the stories, I know the lore, but I was watching it with my girlfriend, and she really was confused, like, especially in the beginning. She was like, why doesn't Johnny know anything? They didn't explain this. What is this tournament? Because it's all going really, really quickly. Like, if you really missed what Raiden said when he was explaining the rules, then you kind of missed, the whole, premise of the movie, why Earthrealm is in such dire need of help, why they actually need to win this tournament. But, other than that, there weren't really any boring sections, because, again, I take this with a grain of salt. I am biased because I love Mortal Kombat, but to me, there weren't really any boring sections because the movie just moves so fast. There's some walking and talking sections, but, it mostly cuts to, like, things going on and, a lot of action. And speaking of action, it is Mortal Kombat, so there are gonna be fights, and a lot of fights. Now, what I've noticed with previous Mortal Kombat entries is there were sort of just, like, fights for no reason because it's Mortal Kombat and they just wanted to have people fight for the sake of having people fight, right? But in this one, it feels like the fights come naturally, like the characters actually have a reason to fight, so they fight. And the choreographed fights are amazing in this movie. I feel like it's one of the best we've ever gotten. The special effects is really good. There's one fight that I will say is phenomenal. I loved it. And I'm just going to say it outright because it was in the trailer. Obviously, the Kung Lao versus Liu Kang. That fight was really good. And let me explain why. I actually, while I was watching that fight, I felt the stress of Liu Kang because they were fighting in, I forgot that arena, but it was an arena from the games, but they brought it to life in the movie. But it looks amazing, like the whole background looks amazing if you do see the movie and you do see the fight. But it's like Liu Kang was fighting Kung Lao. Liu Kang has to focus and fight Kung Lao, but Kung Lao throws his hat and it sort of orbits the battlefield, and then he calls it over and it just tries to go and slice Liu Kang and slice everything right around him, so he kind of has to focus on dodging the hat at the same time, dodging Kung Lao and countering his moves. It was just really done well, and I felt like the effects of like Kung Lao's teleport was really amazing. And especially there's a specific scene right before the fight where Kung Lao sort of goes back to Earthrealm, and you're gonna know it when you see the movie, and something happens before Liu Kang and Kung Lao fight, and it is amazing. I love the special effects, and it is shocking. You're like, what? I did not expect that to happen. Another thing is I loved Sindel's scream, like the where she screams. That kind of reminded me of obviously Black Canary and her scream and how it's shown in like the animated films, but it's brought back to like live action, and I loved it because it really, you could hear the impact throughout the theater. Like, you could hear the scream come from all around. It really does sound piercing. Another thing is Jax's metal arms is done really well. Cole Young actually kind of looks cool. I know I was hating on him, but he kind of looks cool with his, like, metal chest and his, like, batons that he has. Who else? Sonya Blade. She has her energy rings. They look very cool, too. Like, the neon pink lights. They all look super cool. Like, Noob Saibot. You name it. Kano's eye. Baraka's fight. Everything was sort of choreographed well, and I feel like it is a true love letter to the actual fans that love the game. And obviously this is Mortal Kombat, so you're gonna see a lot of brutality, a lot of blood, a lot of stabbing, and then like blood squirting, and then you're gonna see like people's heads exploding and a lot of fatalities. And like I said, if the CGI is pretty good and the special effects are pretty good, the fatalities are gonna be pretty good too. I mean, really in none of the movies they didn't really get this wrong, and this one is no exception. They got it right. Now let's talk about the villain. Obviously, you guys know Shao Kahn is in it. I feel like he is kind of underwhelming a little bit. Now, let me explain why. I feel like we haven't seen his true potential of power. Now, Shao Kahn, obviously, don't get me wrong, he's still immensely powerful in the movie, but when you compare that to the lore of the games, like, I feel like this Shao Kahn is like a whimper compared to the lore of Shao Kahn, like the OG Shao Kahn. But nonetheless, he is very intimidating. He has that mask, that typical Shao Kahn mask, the hammer, and you see a lot of his iconic moves done in the game. He taunts his enemies like he does in the game. He has that shoulder charge with the green glow like he has in the game. And he is very intimidating. He's shown as sort of like a dictator, and people like worship him basically. And side villains, you have like Shang Tsung and Quan Chi, obviously, and you have some of the Outworld combatants, and you have characters like Jade. They are also on, Shao Kahn's side, obviously. If you're going to see this movie and you know the games and, all this stuff is predictable. And speaking of predictable, this movie is sort of predictable when it comes to the villains. Obviously, like, that the heroes are going to win. This is a typical Mortal Kombat, typical hero's journey movie. So, obviously, the villain is going to have some successes, and then you're going to have your main protagonist rise to the occasion and rise even higher to the occasion and eventually defeat the antagonist, because that's how a typical hero's journey works. They have their mentor, they have their supporting buddies, etc., etc. So it does make it fairly predictable, and I don't really like that, because I wanted them to do something a little different than the games, or make them have some shock value. There are some shock values, there are some deaths in the movie, it is Mortal Kombat. However, I feel like there wasn't really enough shock value to make it, something unique, because a lot of the movie I do remember, but I don't know if I will remember it a couple years from now. You know what I mean? You know how if you think about a movie that is truly great, you always have something that you will remember from the movie, like a famous scene, a famous just plot, arc that happened. But in this movie, I do remember everything because it's fresh off my mind from watching yesterday. However, I really don't know how long that will last. But when it comes to characters and their arcs, this movie actually does try to tell a story. I feel like a lot more characters have arcs in this movie, and there is a lot of emotion in this movie compared to previous. And it really gets you to actually feel that emotion, because we actually care about these characters, unlike caring about Cole Young from the first movie. And I feel like that's a plus of this movie too. And then we could go into things like soundtrack and like character design, but obviously that is more opinion based. They don't really affect the movie. Me personally, I love Kitana's design. I love what they did with the characters. I feel like Baraka kind of looks a little bit weird, a little unnatural, but when doesn't he look unnatural? But I just feel like you could obviously tell it's like some guy in like they molded something on his face, you know what I mean? But I'm not gonna complain too much, because I feel like I'm nitpicking at this point. Anyways, this is just me like rambling like a podcast style of what I think of the movie. I want to get to my final verdict of this, and I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. Now, I loved everything about this movie, and I want to see another one come out. And matter of fact, it does set up for a sequel, and I've heard that they are already working on a Mortal Kombat 3. And I really hope that it executes well, and they continue to improve and learn from their mistakes of the previous movies, and even this movie, what it does wrong, and see all like the more professional reviewers review it and take what they say and make it better. Because honestly, I really love Mortal Kombat, and I want to see nothing but success. And they're really pushing it to be, a big franchise, so I really hope that it really gets out there and makes a lot of money so they can make another one. And I know there's a Street Fighter movie coming out, so I hope that one is good too. But it's going to be hard for it to top this one, because this movie actually really does hit hard. If you love, this is just basically it. If you love Mortal Kombat, just go see this movie. I don't think you'll be disappointed. But anyways, drop a comment down below. Did you see this movie? Do you plan on seeing this movie? I know this video is a little different than my usual gaming topic videos, but I just thought, I do a lot of videos on Mortal Kombat. I might as well do a movie review, what I think of the movie. But anyways, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Make sure you drop a like, drop a sub, and join the Legion. Mr. Frosty Flames out. Yeah.